Aston, of course, he had his MBE given to him by the Queen back in 2009. So lots of memories for him, but a driver has to get in the car and just focus on the events ahead of them, and certainly Monza is a challenge for any driver.
Absolutely, Jenny. It's obviously a very sad and difficult moment for millions of people in the world currently, but these 20 racing drivers have to just block any sadness out, focus on their racing cars, their race teams, their job effectively, and go out and produce a top job in free practice 2. This is the session where we will really get to see what people have got with regards to qualifying speed, and also we'll get an idea this afternoon of people's race running pace. So I'm looking forward to this session.
Ferrari running a special tribute livery, and they're in special outfits and helmets. Jack Nicholls, I have to say good luck, because both of the helmets of the Ferrari drivers look remarkably similar.
It's the little yellow flash on the roll hoop. That's all that's going to be that I'm going to be going on. To be fair, that's what I usually use for Ferrari. Also, no, they usually have some fluorescence over the fronts, but the roll hoop's the way forward.
Okay, good marker. They were certainly fastest earlier on, Jack. How long can they keep that shit going, though, I suppose?
Yeah, they were fastest on paper, but not fastest in reality. Max Verstappen appeared to have the pace advantage over the Ferraris, but as Sam said, this session we will learn a lot more about the respective pace teams, because Red Bull looked pretty strong with Verstappen, but not so strong with Perez. Engine penalties, of course, will bring you up to date with all of those that are coming up in the race also, because that also takes away some of the importance of qualifying for some of the teams and drivers, even though your back of the grid penalties are still decided by which order you qualify in. But there's a whole load of things in the mix this weekend.
Certainly are. We've got just a minute roughly until this session starts. Back in the car for Mick Schumacher and Sebastian Vettel, both of them sitting out the first session, Sam.
Indeed, yeah, it's a requirement now for the teams to let their reserve drivers drive in, I think it's 3 free practices per season, which I think is a nice thing for a reserve driver to be able to do. It's something that I was unfortunately kind of prior to this rule, so I had to sit drinking coffee most of the time. Good thing for Formula One.
Well, as I said, session about to get underway in Monza, so let's hand over to Jack.
Yep, the car's about to leave the pit lane. Carlos Sainz heading straight out in that livery, which, as Jenny says, to mark 75 years of the Ferrari car company since the first 125S rolled off the production line at Modena. Not that Ferrari's ever really been a production line, to be fair, but Sainz is heading out onto the circuit, very keen to crack straight on with things. In fact, I think he might be the first driver out on track, in fact, and he is. So out he goes onto the track. Fernando Alonso joining the circuit as well. In free practice 1, the Ferraris were quickest on a 1 minute 22.410 for Charles Leclerc. 700ths quicker than Sainz, almost 3/10 quicker than Russell, and 4/10 quicker than Hamilton. But Verstappen ended 5th, 4/10 away, but he was 3/10 up after the middle sector before he got blocked by Lando Norris in the final sector. So we expect a bit more pace from Verstappen, who makes his way to the exit of the pit lane now. 59 minutes and 6.54 seconds left on the clock as he releases the pit lane speed limiter and joins the circuit on a brand new set of the medium tyres. Schumacher and Ocon have both gone out on the hard tyres. It's just gone 5 o'clock in Italy, and I love this time of evening in the autumn in Italy, as the sun sort of, it doesn't begin to set, but the shadows get a little longer on the race circuit, and a beautiful place in the park just to the north of Milan. Claire about to head out on circuit 2, so pretty much everybody is cracking straight on with a little bit of running in this second free practice. Who is second in the points, 201 points for he and Sergio Perez, 310 points for Max Verstappen, so the lead is quite remarkable. And it is quite remarkable how far Leclerc and Ferrari are back from Verstappen, considering the pace of the car and how many pole positions they've taken this year. The gap is just unfathomably big almost.
Considering it's been, we've spoken about the championship being between those two.
Yeah,
it's really not anymore between those two. You know, Charles, 6-7 races into the championship, was right there. Remember, after I think it was 4 races, Charles Leclerc had a 35-point lead in the championship, so it's really swung. Imagine if he didn't have that lead, it'd be done. As we go on board currently with Carlos Sainz on the medium compound tyre towards the second chicane. Quicker this afternoon or this evening now than they were this morning.
Very pleasant evening as well, 27 degrees. The air temperature tracks up at 38 at the moment, which is tend to be kind of where it sits at Monza on a pleasant day, around that sort of 35, 36, 37 degrees range, as Sainz comes into the Ascari chicane, named after the Italian world champion, 2-time champion Alberto Ascari. As Sainz comes down to the Parabolica, gets onto the brakes just after the 100-meter board, hugs the apex, runs it out wide, gravel out there on the outside of the Parabolica as well now, which is nice to see back. And Sainz does a 1:23.1, so he's only 0.6 slower than he managed in the first 3 practice sessions on a set of soft tyres. So pretty pacey first lap that from...
Replaced power unit 3 that got damaged in Spa. They're still working on that at the moment. Max Verstappen will be +5. He's taking a new internal combustion engine. That's all at the moment. Perez +10 for a new gearboxing. Sainz, he will take pretty much everything. He's +25, but I've just seen that he's taking a new control electronics as well, so he'll be back of the grid. Tsunoda is +10 because he got 5 reprimands, so he shuffles back 10, and then they're also replacing quite a lot of his engine and gearing parts. Bottas +15. And at the moment, that's all that I have confirmed, but we are expecting a few more before Sunday.
Do you know what I'd prefer to see? Instead of all this +25, +15, +10, I'd almost prefer them to be seconds in a pit stop. Let them qualify and start where they qualify, and then do a certain amount of seconds as an addition the pit stops, like we would see for a 10-second penalty in the pit lane. But that's my opinion.
I like it. I actually like that a lot,
because at the moment I mean, people are getting 30, 50 place grid penalties. It means nothing. Like, whereas if you get a 50-second compared to a 10-second, it's very different, isn't it?
I'm calling the FIA after this session and telling...
I think you should.
Do you... Well, we're going a bit deep here quite early in the session. Charles Leclerc is currently going quicker than Verstappen, so I'll do the lap times and then remind me to ask you this question later if I forget. Quite a quick lap here coming for Charles Leclerc. 54 minutes and 12 seconds left on the clock, and he is almost half a second up on Max Verstappen after the first 2 sectors. Coming now down towards the Parabolica. Verstappen's done a 23.0. Leclerc potentially could set the fastest lap time of the weekend so far on these medium tyres, out across the line, and he does a 1:22.307, 0.7 quicker than Max Verstappen. And Perez is back in the pits in the other Red Bull. It's a pretty encouraging lap that from Leclerc. I know it's a first run in free practice 2 on medium tyres, but it's solid.
Very solid lap. We haven't fully seen what Max Verstappen can do yet. I think he's just about to start another flying lap, so let's wait and see. In about 90 seconds time we'll know, Jack, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a little bit less than that because he's just come Leclerc in sector 1. Mick Schumacher's just had a big lock-up down at the...
Are you sure? Because it's greens and purples all the way through.
Yeah, he's done a 27.3, but 3 tenths slower than Charles Leclerc in the first sector, though. But we'll see. We also don't know on Fridays anyway what sort of engine modes they're running and all those sorts of things. Middle sector incoming for Verstappen, and it's a 27.6, fastest of anybody in the middle sector. So finding a bit of pace now, Verstappen, still not quite on target to beat Charles Leclerc, but he's going to be close. This is his second lap, I should say, on these medium tyres. Coming down towards the final corner now at the Parabolica. Brakes, turns it into the right-hander, right up towards the gravel on the exit and out across the line, and Verstappen does go quicker by a whopping 4 thousandths.
That's about as much as Max had on that lap. That was he missed the apex a little bit at the Ascari chicane, just a little bit on the left, which then tightened the right-hander up. So I still think he's probably got a couple of tenths left, but certainly at the Parabolica there's no more time left on the exit of Parabolica. You wanted to ask me something.
So you've just come up with a great idea there about pit stops. I mean, I wonder whether maybe they think that'll be too complicated once the race is actually underway or something. I don't know, that maybe there's a reason. You famously came up with the Formula E new qualifying format. Do you think of yourself, do you think you have a future in running motorsport? Have you ever thought about that? Or not like president of the FIA, but you know what, involved in the sort of behind the scenes things, or are you done?
I'm not like a driver called Lucas de Grassi.
No, exactly.
You know, Lucas is eloquent, very welcome a role like that. I come up with some ideas, but I don't think that I have the authoritative figure in order to fill such large shoes as what the president of the FIA has.
Interesting. Sainz across the line improves. Third quickest, just over a tenth away. Leclerc was on another push lap. He was a couple of tenths adrift in sector 1, but he has done a personal best in sector 2, which has pretty much matched Max Verstappen's time. Perez is on another lap coming into the Parabolica, turns it in, then gets on the power and doesn't use quite as much on the road on the exit. And Perez from 4th place remains 4th and is 8 tenths adrift of Verstappen. The personal best in the middle sector for Leclerc is reasonable. He's about to set his lap time. I don't think it's going to improve on what he managed previously. He doesn't. Tenths in the first sector.
But do you not see as well that that's a sign of, as we were speaking about in free practice 1, he's just not as comfortable at the moment in the car as Max. Clearly he's not as comfortable as Max in the car, but the fact that he's left not a car's width, but nearly width on the left-hand side, whereas Max is driving with parts of the rubber nearly in the gravel. I mean, he's using every bit of tarmac possible.
At the moment, it's sort of as you would expect. Max Verstappen quickest, Leclerc second, Sainz in third, fourth for Sergio Perez in the Red Bull. Then it's Hamilton in fifth and Russell in sixth. Then it's the two Alpines of Alonso in seventh and Ocon in eighth. Then Yuki Tsunoda's up there in ninth. Then he called him Yuki Ninether. 10th for Lando Norris. Then it's Gasly, Joe, Magnussen, Stroll and Vettel, the top 15. Albon. FP2 just out of the pit lane. What's Albon up to? His first sector is half a second adrift. Middle sector is about 9 tenths adrift. So I don't think this is going to be huge for Albon. He might get up into 11th place here ahead of Pierre Gasly. He comes out of the final corner and he doesn't. He only goes 14th quickest for Alex Albon in the Williams, but he is on a hard tyre. He is on a hard tyre. Everyone else is out on the mediums, bar Esteban Ocon, who's running in 8th place. Jenny Gao.
Yeah, as you said, Valtteri Bottas just on his outlap in the Alfa Romeo. As planned, no particular issues for him. I think a lot of people looking at that Williams will be hoping for a really good weekend here. It's an opportunity, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll see, because the the time slipped away a little in the practice earlier. We're 11th quickest for Albon, which was pretty decent in FP1. We'll see what they can do. Describe it. We'll get a first sector split for him here through Curva Grande, and in the first sector Bottas has a 27.3, so it's still reasonably quick actually, only 500 slower than Max Verstappen. Quick through the Roggia and now into the two Lesmos, but he's on the soft tyres, Valtteri Bottas, so of course that will give him a grip advantage. Gasly's improving on this lap, currently in 11th place. Joe's improving as well. Verstappen, Alonso, Magnussen and Schumacher are the four drivers that are back in the pit lane. Bottas, after the middle sector, is 4 tenths away from Verstappen, so might slot into the top four here, Bottas, if he has a neat and tidy final sector. 47 minutes and 15 seconds to go. His teammate Joe has gone 11th fastest. Into the Parabolica for Bottas. Out across the line, and the man who finished third here last year slots into 4th place here, 7 tenths away from Verstappen. But that's the first sort of soft tyre time that we've seen so far.
A couple of small little mistakes in there. I felt like he had a small oversteer that then he had to correct in between the first phase and the second phase of the first chicane, which is why he then didn't get the curb turning left. So that was a little bit there, and then again just the front looked a little bit lazy at the Ascari chicane. So I think that he'll be pleased with that effort, but there's still work to be done. There's still a little bit of time on the table. Bearing in mind it's now past 5 o'clock in the evening out there in Monza, the track is going to evolve. It's going to continue to get quicker and quicker as we see Charles. So yeah, if Bottas is doing a time now, that will be, I think, significantly by the front runners come the end of the session.
Absolutely. Yuki Tsunoda's done a solid little lap on the medium tyre. He had gone up into 7th place ahead of the two Mercedes, but Russell improves on a second lap on the medium tyres to get him into 5th position. Hamilton is on an out lap at the moment as well. In fact, he's just starting his flying lap now, coming down the start finish straight towards the Rettifilo, but solid little lap that from Yuki Tsunoda, running in 7th place. The top 10 at the moment: Verstappen, Leclerc, Sainz, Bottas, Russell, Perez, Tsunoda, Hamilton, Alonso and Ocon. But Bottas's lap time was on the soft tyre, Ocon's lap time was on the medium tyre, and this is the sound of Sergio Perez, who is improving on this lap. Personal bests in the first 2 sectors. Pretty decent middle sector actually, only a couple of tenths shy of Max Verstappen, so this could be a little better for Sergio Perez. Maybe back up into 4th place. Here he comes across the line. He does go back up into 4th, still actually half a second away from his teammate Max Verstappen though. So a little bit of drift for Perez, 9 laps now, so he's done 1 more lap on these tyres than Max Verstappen has. And Verstappen is back in the pits, Leclerc back in the pits, Sainz back in the pits. Tsunoda, Alonso, Norris, Gasly, Magnussen, Albon, Ricciardo, Stroll, Schumacher all back in the pits as well. Sebastian Vettel improves to go 17th quickest in the Aston Martin on the medium tyres, but not particularly quick for Aston Martin in 17th and 18th, and McLaren struggling a little in 11th and 16th at the moment. So 44 minutes and 17 seconds left to go, and we'll see when they put the soft tyres on, but that's not a huge advantage for Verstappen. Nowhere near the sort of size that it looked like it was going to be in pre-practice 1.
No, clearly not. And I think that the Ferrari, as you go softer in compound, gets slightly more competitive. It seems like the hard compound, the Red Bull certainly is the one to have. As we see a replay with Valtteri Bottas, hopefully you'll see the wiggle that I mean in the middle of the corner. Yeah, he runs deep. This is the next lap. Okay, he's completely missed turn 1 and turn 2, everybody, on his second attempt on the soft tyre. So I think that time will stand then, because now he'll start to run out of rubber.
Nicholas Latifi is improving on this lap on a set of medium tyres. Joe returns to the pits in the other Alfa Romeo. Latifi stays out though, comes past the podium and across the line, and remains in 9th. And maybe that sort of scuppered his first set of tyres for this session, and is now just waiting in the next session. After,
but he needs to do some laps, doesn't he? Because he's, obviously sat the first session out in favour of Antonio Giovinazzi. So, I mean, you'd want to go out there and just get a feel again of the circuit. This place is, although it might not look like the most technical, in order to extract the maximum lap time, you've really got to feel comfortable in some of these corners, because it is a very tricky circuit, very low downforce, much lower than anywhere else you will run throughout the season. So picking your braking points and carrying the speeds through Lesmo 1, Lesmo 2 and Ascari are absolutely key.
Jenny.
Yeah, just looking at those tyres, it's the C2, C3 and C4 compounds, which are the hard, mediums and softs, and they're the same tyres that we used in Spa, and the tyres this year still seem to be so difficult for the teams to get their heads around all the time. A lot of them talking about a very narrow window of operation where your car just suddenly comes alive. Mercedes are one of those teams, whereas Red Bull, Adrian Newey and the design team there seem to have built a Red Bull car which can operate under a much bigger window of opportunity. So it'll be fascinating to see what happens this weekend when it comes to tyre degradation, because Ferrari are working so hard to try and make it better. It seemed better last time out, did it?
No, but, well, Monza's quite interesting tyre degradation, because it depends where you're getting the degradation, and it's Mercedes, if they struggle to turn their tyres on, let's say, and get sort of heat into them, Monza's quite tricky for that because of all the long straights and not that many big long corners. You got Parabolica, but the others are quick but quite short.
It is. The tyre that gets quite a lot of pounding around here is the front left, due to the nature of the circuit. Parabolica, the long sort of sweep before the second chicane as well. Lesmo 1, Lesmo 2, they're all right-handers, so the front left really takes a pounding and can quite easily grain. So that's something to look out for. I can imagine that if the track is cooler and you're going out on the harder compound, that's going to be very, very difficult.
Max Verstappen quickest at the moment on a 1 minute 22.303, less than a tenth quicker than Charles Leclerc, well, 4,000ths quicker than Charles Leclerc. Carlos Sainz is third, Sergio Perez is fourth, Valtteri Bottas is fifth but has been out on the soft tyre. Russell, Tsunoda, Hamilton, Alonso and Ocon the top 10. Ocon was out on the hard tyre. All the other lap times are mediums. Norris, Gasly, Joe, Magnussen, Albon the top 15, although Albon and Ricciardo both on the hard tyre. And then Vettel, Stroll, Latifi and Schumacher, the 20 drivers. Schumacher's left the pits on a set of softs, as has Kevin Magnussen, and the other Haas, as has Valtteri Bottas now. So this is going to be a bit of a... Well, this is only going to be Schumacher's 6th lap of the day, whereas everybody else has got, what, 27, 28 on the board. I think 28 was the most anyone did earlier on today, which was Lance, Stroll, Joe and Esteban Ocon, whereas Schumacher on lap 6 was about to put on a set of soft tyres and absolutely go for it here. So see what he can do.
He's about to give his teammate Kevin Magnussen a tow around the circuit, it looks like, as well. So maybe they are practicing that.
Yeah, very close to each other, heading down toward... Curva del Serralio.
Magnussen working his front tyres a lot more than Mick Schumacher.
They come out onto the back straight, down towards the Parabolica, and this certainly seems like some tandem running for Haas, because you can get tricked sometimes where they look quite close and then the second one really backs off and then they disappear. But this is, I mean, what is there between them here? About 4 seconds, I would say, as they come across the line down towards turn 1, which is the perfect sort of window to grab a tow. Bottas, as I say, on an outlap as well. Those are the only 3 cars on track at the moment. Schumacher 202 miles an hour before getting onto the brakes into the Rettifilio and then out towards Curva Grande. Bottas joining the track and just starting his flying lap now. So he's oh no, he's returned straight to the pits actually, Bottas. So he's just gone out and done a sort of install lap. And Magnussen is much quicker than Schumacher in the first sector, as you would expect, by about 0.4 of a second. Schumacher into the two Lesmos for the first time. Nice late apex on the first one, down into the second one. It took him neat and tidy enough for Schumacher.
No, he really clonked the curb clumsily at the second chicane, Jack, so he lost, I think, quite a bit of time there. We'll see what it is. It's 1.4 seconds down on Verstappen and a full second down on his teammate Kevin Magnussen. Sorry, 4 tenths down on his teammate Magnussen.
Yeah, he was actually a tenth quicker than Magnussen through the middle sector, heading down towards Parabolica now. Tsunoda's just left the pits on a set of soft tyres. Schumacher to the edge of the white line on the way out of the final corner, and Magnussen goes 13th quickest. Schumacher remains 19th quickest. In the end, there was 0.7 of a second between them, so reasonable in the middle sector from Schumacher, but sectors 1 and 3 lost a bit of time. Of course, got to remember that it seems as though Magnussen had a bit of a slipstream as well, which would have accounted for some of the pace differential, but not all, I would suggest. 36 minutes and 48 seconds on the clock. Verstappen leaves the pits on a set of soft tyres. Alonso leaves the pits on a set of soft tyres, as does Lando Norris and Alex Albon and Nicholas Latifi. So this is going to be interesting. Gianni Morbidelli's here, Formula One driver who had 67 Grand Prix and 1 podium finish. He's in the back of the Ferrari garage. He went and he going to do GTs, Gianni Morbidelli? I can't remember.
I mean, I know he continued to race, but if you asked me what, I wouldn't have a clue.
I don't think he became. There's someone I'm thinking of who was the.
Mind, obviously, of Ferrari that then became a GT expert is obviously Giancarlo Fisichella.
Yeah.
But that's a lot later than Morbidelli, for sure.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who I'm thinking of, and then I
Jimmy
will
Bruni.
work it out. That's exactly who I was thinking
Bruni,
of.
there we go.
Gianmaria Bruni.
Jimmy Bruni. What a GT driver he has been over the years.
Morbidelli never raced Ferrari, I don't believe. Oh, he did. He raced at the end of 1991 for Ferrari in Australia and finished 6th.
There we go.
Did not know that. Got his 1 podium in the final race of the season of 1995 for footwork when he finished 3rd in Adelaide. Why did he fill in at Ferrari? Anyway, Jenny Gao.
Yeah, just looking at the toe after watching the two Haas cars go round line astern, it is worth 0.25 of a second around this track with these cars. That's what we're hearing. How difficult is it to orchestrate well, Sam Bird? Because we've seen Ferrari try and do it. They tried to do it in Spa, and I'm just wondering how tough it is to try and make it work.
Jenny, it's super difficult to extract the maximum out of it, so that the engineers will say that's the ideal amount of lap time. So that's based on all the conditions being perfect. That's based on you being far enough back that you don't get affected in the corners, but close enough that you get an effect in a straight line, and judging that in a car while you might have traffic around you, people breathing down your neck behind that you've kind of got to get out the way of, cars in front, judging their pace. It's very, very tricky to get right, to be honest. We've seen it done very well, and we've also, as you know, seen it done
Won't be putting in an improvement this time around. Lando Norris goes 3rd quickest on a 1 minute 22.3, so less than a tenth away from Max Verstappen. Morbidelli filled in at that final race after Alain Prost was sacked at Ferrari, so that's why Morbidelli joined. And I'd forgotten he did touring cars. He did the British Touring Car Championship in 1998. Rickard Rydell's teammate in the Volvo S40s, and was racing up until 2019 in the TCR Europe Touring Car Series, and did the World Touring Car Cup in 2018. So yeah, kept going, did Gianni Morbidelli. and now he's at the back of the Ferrari garage in Monza. Verstappen quickest, Leclerc second. They haven't improved yet. Norris has got up into third. Alonso has only gone fifth quickest, so that's 4 tenths slower than Lando Norris, which is encouraging. And actually, Alex Albon is less than a tenth behind Fernando Alonso in fifth place. So sixth for Albon, eighth and ninth for Zhou and Bottas. Verstappen coming across the line, and he's going to have another go on these soft tyres. Had a big lock-up down at the Rettifilo on his first attempt. Much more neat and tidy this time through the right and the left, and then on the power down towards Curva Grande. Daniel Ricciardo in the other McLaren goes up to 8th quickest and is about half a second slower than his teammate Lando Norris. Verstappen through the first sector, 700ths down on what he managed previously as he comes into Della Roggia and then out towards the two Lesmo corners, fighting it on the exit of the chicane.
Fighting on the exit, but really carrying quite good minimum speed through the corner. Although every time you do that with the rear of the car, it just makes the rear a little bit hotter. I don't think it'll affect him here at Monza. You can drive like that, you can be quite aggressive because the tyre gets a chance to cool down a little bit. And as we see, over 2 tenths of a second now, up on his best time with a purple middle.
One for Leclerc. Verstappen coming into the final turn now. Hamilton's done a pretty decent first 2 sectors. There's a yellow flag out there in the middle sector. Verstappen comes across the line, and does he improve? He does by half a second, a 1 minute 21.807. Still yellow flag out there. Hamilton goes 5th quickest, and it's Schumacher. It's Mick Schumacher, who on the exit of the second chicane, Della Roggia, is off the road. Now, he doesn't appear to have hit the wall, but so he may have just pulled off. Well, my point is he's not currently in the wall, but unless he's spun coming out of Della Roggia and spun, I think he may have spun back across the circuit because there's some big black tyre lines and he's out the car, and it's a red flag. Frustration for Schumacher. 9 laps done today in total, whereas...
Yeah, I think so as well. It's not the kind of place where you would spin, so I think that he's had an issue.
Yeah, so Schumacher, well, we're about to get a replay of it. Listen to this as he comes towards the chicane. It's just scraping along the floor. Onto the brakes. Down through the gears.
I had a cut up. I cut out of power.
Okay, checking. We're still investigating, but we'll start a push lap and then see what happens. Let me know if you don't feel power.
I think I seized the engine or something. What the hell happened?
Okay, we're checking everything. Stop the car, please. Stop the car. Try to stop on the right-hand side if you can. Stop the car.
So Schumacher reporting a problem before the lap started, and then kind of as he's at the apex, it looks as though the engine's just died and the rears have locked kind of halfway through the left-hander.
So what he actually said on the radio there is it feels...
And he sounded a bit confused by it, didn't he? He says, I think I've seized the engine, as if that's not a thing that happened. I always remember, red flag is out, I always remember 2016 Hamilton blowing up from the lead of the Grand Prix, and it turned out it was the big end went. And you're like, this is F1, the big end went. This isn't a club meeting at Mallory Park and someone's like Mark II Golf has blown up. This is Formula One, how does the big end go? But it did. I love a retro failure.
That was the one in Malaysia.
Yeah,
when
correct.
He was leading the race. Changed the whole perspective of the championship.
Well, and it changed. Minutes and 51 seconds left on the clock, and red flag is out. So we saw a lap from Verstappen. We didn't see a lap from Leclerc. We saw a lap from Norris, didn't see a lap from Sainz. Hamilton went 5th quickest, 6 tenths away from Verstappen, and interestingly, slower than Lando Norris. So that Norris lap time's really, really interesting. Jenny?
Yeah, just before that problem for Mick Schumacher, they were on the radio talking to him and they were asking him to do a reset. They were saying Bravo 20 default. So they were talking to him, as you're saying, communicating to him to try and get him to solve the problem. Clearly, problem terminal. I also on the proper failures, like a mechanical failure, spark plugs. Can you remember who it was? Can't remember who got the spark plugs that were problematic. Was it Lewis Hamilton potentially, or a Ferrari? But I remember going, "Oh, spark plugs! That's a cracker. I like it. It's something that you can relate to at home, isn't it?"
Yeah, spark plugs is a good one. Yeah, I like spark. I like spark.
Remember who it was?
No, nor do I. But I like spark plugs, big ends, and engine seizes. That's what I'm here for. 27 minutes and 37 seconds left on the clock. Verstappen quickest, second, Norris third, Sainz fourth, Hamilton fifth, Alonso, Albon, Perez, Ricciardo and Zhou the top 10. Bottas, Russell, Tsunoda, Magnussen and Ocon the top 15. Did Tsunoda improve on his soft? I don't think he has yet. Ocon 15th, Stroll, Gasly, Latifi, Vettel and Schumacher the 20 drivers, but Schumacher has ground to a halt in that Haas and will be waiting to, well, get a ride back to the pit lane on the back of a moped. Not too far to go from the inside of Curva Grande. Although, I mean, actually the two Lesmans are probably the furthest point away from the track, actually, but he's on the right side at least. But everybody else now waiting to go back out. That was a big lap from Verstappen, but we're still got to wait to see what Ferrari can do with Charles. Because although Verstappen won't be in the actual pole position fight, if Ferrari can kind of match Verstappen's pace here, or be near, then when Verstappen gets the 5-place grid drop, at least 5-place grid drop that we know of, Leclerc's got a chance. I think if he's got there or thereabouts pace, it's doable. Obviously Spa, it was impossible to stop Verstappen.
After Spa, it's difficult for me to even talk about anybody else's chances.
Very true. Jenny?
Just looking up spark plug, it was Sebastian Vettel, and it was 2017, I believe, when he was on the potentially title challenge and the spark plug failure happened at Suzuka, and that was the end of the battle for the title in 2017. But it's stuck in my mind as a good old-fashioned failure.
I can't quite remember 2017 Suzuka, honestly. I can't quite remember it, but I believe you. Was he during the race then? Was he leading it? I can't remember. It's all too long ago. 25 minutes and 35 seconds to go. Well, I can remember Gianni Morbidelli, but I can't remember what happened in 2017.
It's really good. One thing I would say, Norris sitting there in third place, he is really becoming, I mean, he was anyway, he was talented when he came in, and he clearly was showcasing that and has showcased that, but I feel like again this year, I would say that the McLaren package was probably a little bit stronger last year than it is this year. But in terms of him executing and extracting the maximum out of his car, he is doing that now every single weekend. And I think that I just wanted to put it out there to people that this is a young man from England who is really one to chant for and look for the next 10-15 years, as well as George, as well as Lewis. You know, Lando Norris is doing such a good job.
Where do you think he can go? What do you see his future be? Is it just stay at McLaren and hope McLaren get good?
With a lot of these drivers, Jack, a lot of these drivers could become world champions in the right machinery. They're not in Formula One for no reason. They're all world-class drivers. But it's finding the right car at the right time. You know, Fernando Alonso should have more world championships under his belt, but he's only been in the right car at the right time for 2 years of his career. Max Verstappen is probably more than likely now going to go on a run of depends on the timing. If McLaren can get that car right next year or the year after or wherever, or if then he thinks, no, I've got to move in order to win races, his next move is going to be critical to him trying to win a world championship.
Back underway. It was on the grid for the Japanese Grand Prix that Vettel had that spark plug failure. Verstappen quickest, Leclerc second. Leclerc's gone out on the mediums. So it's very interesting. So has Carlos... No, apologies. I'm looking at his quickest lap time was set on the mediums. Now he's going out on a set of the soft tyre, and Sainz is the first on the road, coming down towards the Rettifilo now. So he's currently 6/10 slower than Verstappen. Let's see what kind of pace he can... to get it stopped. Russell is just a couple of seconds back from him on the circuit. No slipstreaming going on with the Ferraris or with Russell. And Sainz through sector 1 is up by almost 2/10 on Max Verstappen. Russell's a 10th up on Max Verstappen also in the first sector. So Verstappen's first sector, to be fair, didn't set the world alight. I think he was 700 slower than he had managed previously. So there's probably more time in there for Verstappen.
Absolutely, Jack. Absolutely. And remember, it's now 5:40 at night. Sun's going down. Track 10 will just start to be creeping down a little bit. This track is going to get quicker in this session. Only problem is, do people have enough tyres left, or do they have any tyre left in order to extract the maximum out of the track?
Sainz then down towards the Parabolica. Perez is 3/10 down on Verstappen after the middle sector. Sainz is going quicker than Verstappen at the moment, hugs the apex all the way around the Parabolica, then runs it out nice and wide, comes across the line, and Carlos Sainz goes to the top of the times, a 1:21.664, almost 2/10 quicker than Verstappen. Russell goes ahead of Hamilton, but still slower than Lando Norris. Ocon jumps up into 7th place, and Charles Leclerc is halfway around the lap. His first sector wasn't great, middle sector's all right. Perez splits the Mercedes, 7/10 away from Sainz, but 6th quickest. Leclerc's going to improve, but how close is he going to be to the back of Max Verstappen? He swings it into the final corner now at the Parabolica, hugs the right-hander all the way, and then drives towards the line, and Leclerc remains in 3rd, but does get to within 2/10 of a second of Carlos Sainz, and most of that was in his first sector. So, in fact, I just saw him looking at the big screen as he went round down turn. Verstappen, Leclerc, Norris. Sebastian Vettel's had a big slide at the first chicane. His last race at Monza in Formula 1, at least, at the circuit where he won his first Formula 1 Grand Prix in the rain in 2008 for Toro Rosso, who are now AlphaTauri. But Sainz, Verstappen, Leclerc, the top. I think they've got to be pretty encouraged by that Ferrari, haven't they? Considering what we were maybe expecting off the back of Spa in terms of straight line speed and dominance. Oh, Alonso's just got a bit held up here by Pierre Gasly, so that'll annoy the Spaniard.
Yeah, it just seems like the softer the compound here at Monza, Ferrari comes into its own a little bit more. This track, it doesn't kill tyres like what other circuits do. And for soft tyre runs look very strong for Ferrari right now, and maybe Red Bull less so, but it's very close. But then, as we spoke about at the beginning of the broadcast, Jack, I think the harder the compound, the more it plays into Red Bull's territory.
Alonso was on an outlap then, I apologise, so he wasn't getting traffic from Pierre Gasly. He was on an outlap, he's now on the medium tyres. Jenny?
Yeah, just heard from the Haas team. Mick Schumacher did stop out on track causing that red flag. It was a power unit issue, as we probably all could have guessed, but the team confirming it.
Okay, so Schumacher with a lot of work to do tomorrow. Carlos Sainz is quickest, a 1:21.664. Max Verstappen second, Charles Leclerc third, fourth is Lando Norris, fifth is George Russell, sixth is Sergio Perez, Hamilton, Ocon, Alonso and Albon. The top 10, then Ricciardo in 11th, Joe 13th, 14th for Bottas, 15th for Tsunoda, but he's not done a soft tyre lap, Yuki Tsunoda, or at least got one on the board, let's say, and he's back out on the mediums now. So I think that's the quickest we'll see from Tsunoda. Gasly in 15th place, 16th for Kevin Magnussen, 17th for Sebastian Vettel, 18th for Lance Stroll. So tough day incoming for, or tough weekend incoming for Aston Martin by the looks of things. Then Nicholas Latifi in 19th place and Mick Schumacher out of the session and in 5th position. Fernando Alonso is starting a long run now as he comes through because he is 5.3 seconds off the pace of Carlos Sainz. So 18 minutes and 18 seconds left on the clock as the Alpine comes into the first corner. Now, Verstappen's gone out to start his long run on the medium tyre. Charles Leclerc has gone to start his long run on the soft tyre. So once again, we're getting a Norris is on the medium. So here's Russell's radio.
Quite a bit more bottoming down the straight.
So Russell complaining of a slight bit more bottoming down the straight. Jenny.
Charles Leclerc of Ferrari asked to come in and box. He decided no. He wanted to do another lap, so he went out and did another lap. And just a reminder, last year it was Daniel Ricciardo who won the first win of his for McLaren, and it was medium to hard. He stopped at lap 22, but it was the sprint weekend. We're back to a normal weekend this weekend, for what it's worth.
Yeah, Leclerc actually hadn't started his long run. So I think that's what that conversation was, Jenny, because he's just come back into the pits and he was only a couple of tenths down in Sector 1, a couple of tenths down in Sector 2, but doing sectors that were very much short run pace. So Leclerc not... race this Grand Prix, usually about an hour and 20 minutes without any interruptions, because Formula One tracks races are run on distance, and this has a very high average speed. It ends up being quite a short Grand Prix compared to Singapore in a couple of weeks. What, 3 weeks? How many weeks to Singapore? Quite a lot of weeks to Singapore, but that's usually hitting the 2 hour. 16 minutes and 20 seconds left on the clock. Sainz quickest, Verstappen second, Leclerc third, Norris fourth, Russell fifth. The two Aston Martins are right together on circuit, doing a bit of slipstreaming by the looks of things, and this is some aggressive slipstreaming from Stroll on Vettel, and Vettel has now pulled over a little. Gasly goes up into 14th place, so he is maybe the last driver that will set a competitive. The mediums, but yeah, Ferrari and Red Bull looking pretty close at the moment. Mercedes not in the hunt and under a bit of pressure from the rest of the midfield. As I say, Verstappen out on the medium tyre, Norris out on the mediums, Perez still in the pits, Sainz still in the pits, Leclerc still in the pits. They're not going to get huge amounts of data from the long runs when they finally go out, because we've only got 15 minutes to go already.
No, they're leaving it quite late, Jack. You know, they'll if they get out the pits now, they'll have what, 11, 12 laps, no more.
Hamilton saying on the radio that the car is quite unstable. He's out on the medium tyre. It's just coming onto the brakes into Della Roggia chicane on a long run, and then heading towards the first Lesmo. That Norris lap is a real interesting out. I know I can't get over it, but Norris was not exactly pessimistic coming into this weekend, but more felt that Alpine would be the team that would have advantage in the midfield. After 2 laps, from what we can tell on the race sim so far, it's been 25.7 average for Verstappen over those 2 laps, and Lewis Hamilton at 27.0. So Mercedes certainly don't look on the pace like they were in Zandvoort.
No, it looks like Lewis has got a little bit of a mismatch balance. It looks like entry to mid-corner, there's quite a bit of understeer, especially in the middle part of the lap as he comes across traffic now. People coming out the pits, one of the Ferraris. But then on power and combined lateral and longitudinal acceleration, he's really struggling to plant the rear of the car.
Sainz has left the pits on a set of medium tyres. Perez has left the pits on a set of medium tyres, so that is certainly seeming to be the preferred option at the moment. But we did see in Zandvoort, nobody really fancied the hard tyres at all, but everybody ended up with them being preferred come the towards the end of the race. Once Alonso went on the hard tyres, everybody suddenly realised, cool, these look pretty tasty, and got stuck into them, and that's where the strong Mercedes race was sort of built on. And so we're expecting, and also because these tyres are sort of the softer end of the compound as well, that's always the tricky part, is the hard tyre isn't necessarily actually that hard. It's the harder of the three compounds, but not the hardest that we see all season. So medium to hard is the sort of expected strategy. Big lockup for Sergio Perez, huge lockup for Sergio Perez. Why isn't he getting off the brakes?
That's all in the same spot as well. That's going to be horrible to drive. Ooh. Yeah, going down the straight at 335 kilometers an hour with that will feel really bad. You might need some new veneers at the end of the weekend.
12.5 minutes to go. Jenny.
Very funny. I was just having a look at Friday to Saturday and performance differences, and I think Mercedes at the moment seems to do a very decent job of improving. They do a lot of work in the sim on a Friday night, and then on Saturday they seem to come back charging, even when they've had some of their worst weekends ever, according to the team and drivers. Their Saturday still, they managed to regain quite a lot.
Yep, that's a positive, but again, it's one of those, if they regain it, then they're just ending up, you know, third quickest car. And they've certainly made some improvements in some areas. 11 minutes and 40 seconds to go. On average, Fernando Alonso's long run is 0.2 of a second quicker than Lando Norris's long run. So not really a huge difference between the two, but Alpine having the advantage in these very early laps as it stands. As Perez comes across the line again. Still running on his locked up front right. Haven't seen him snatch it again. Gets onto the brakes now into the Rettifilo, and then gets on the power out of it. George Russell is also out there. He has gone out on the soft tyres, George Russell. So a bit of a for Russell to see what the soft tyres are like on a race run. The same is true of over the place, says Russell. So presumably that's where the car is releasing the battery energy.
Exactly. So the car has the ability to harvest energy and then re-dump it, reuse it on the exit of corners, and it's strategically done throughout the lap to extract the maximum potential out of the racing car. And if that's off slightly, you're going to lose lap time. It's going to feel strange, and you've done so many laps in the sim beforehand, it'll feel very, very weird that there's different strategies going on at different corners.
Yep. I think it might have been this whatever sound effect we were getting there for Leclerc. It sounded really sick for a moment.
I was a bit put off by that. I was trying to talk and listen to what sounded like a poorly V6 in the back of the Ferrari, but he seems to be carrying on and no issues. So.
Grande, Sainz quickest, Verstappen second, Leclerc third, and in the early stages on the medium comparison, Sainz on the mediums has done a 25.7, and on average over the first few laps, Sainz is at 25.7, Verstappen's at 25.8. So that's very, very interesting. That for Ferrari look like they've got a bit of race pace as well. So despite the straight line speed of the Red Bull, which felt like it was a kind of no-brainer for the win this weekend, doesn't look that way at the moment with this early race pace from Ferrari and the one-lap pace as well, and Verstappen's grid penalty.
That's just the first lap or two, though. So let's the race is longer than 1 or 2 laps. Let's see what they're like towards the mid-phase of a race run and the end of a race run. I mean, it's an indication.
Looking for some hope. I'm just looking for some hope.
Let's see.
8 minutes and 45 seconds to go. Leclerc across the line on the soft tyre, and he does a 26.0. So that Those were just the first 2 laps from Sainz and Verstappen. So it was that was a 25.7 and a 25.8 for Sainz and Verstappen. So we'll see what they continue to do. 26.0 for Charles Leclerc. But again, that last lap, Verstappen was 0.2 quicker than Carlos Sainz. So that sort of swapped around a little bit. So we'll keep an eye on the averages as the run progresses, as Sam Bird is so keen for us to do. Got a little mini Andrew Benson in training here next to me. Sainz quickest, Verstappen second, Leclerc third. Ocon coming up into the final corner now at the Parabolica.
It's a wonderful tribute to an incredible driver, one of my heroes. But it is very strange to see that helmet in anything other than a red car, especially around this circuit.
Do you have a Schumacher helmet?
No, I don't. But I do have a Michael Schumacher race suit. So
wow. Wow, that's cool. Have you ever put it on?
I put it on as soon as I got back to the hotel in Brazil.
Really?
He gave it to me after his final ever race in Formula 1. I got that suit.
What, it was that suit from the final race?
Yeah, we were in his changing room and he chucked me the suit.
Oh,
and then I
word.
got back to the hotel because me and him were going for dinner that night with his manager and his trainer Kai. And I got straight back to the room and I tried the suit on. Of course it was the first thing I did. Of course it was. I mean, why wouldn't you? And it fit brilliantly. So yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Jenny,
I was going to ask how it fitted, because we've spoken before about the fact that you're not the tallest of drivers.
Jenny, I'm 6 foot. I just hide it well.
You hide it really well.
Oh, thanks. No, it was, you know, Michael was, obviously he's taller than me, he was broader than me, but it fit good. I've got to say, maybe I was slightly podgier back then, but it fit me very well, which, yeah, I was happy about.
And how do you keep it, like, is it framed or something?
It's framed beautifully by local framers down in Dorset, and I've got my Formula 1 race suit and his.
Wow.
So it's quite cool. Something that I will never get rid of.
No, absolutely. That's wonderful. Alex Albon's just had a little lock-up on. Coming into the right-hander, nowhere near as dramatic as Sergio Perez. And Valtteri Bottas has just been driving through the gravel a little bit on the exit of the second Lesmo. Didn't seem to have a moment. He just seemed to end up just horrific understeer. His car didn't turn.
He missed his turning really slightly, but that was always we see a Ferrari nearly running into the back. Charles Leclerc nearly running into the back of someone else going into the first chicane.
Yeah, it was an Aston Martin. I'm not sure if it was Vettel. I think it was Vettel. So that was a bit of a moment for Leclerc. But yeah, Bottas seemed to turn in a bit late and then just get nowhere near the corner in the end. 5 minutes on the clock. And Sainz will end the session quickest. On that last lap, Verstappen was a couple of tenths quicker than Carlos Sainz again. Leclerc is lapping quicker than them on the soft tyre. So we'll see how that ends up. And that's going to be the choice, isn't it, for the drivers starting at the back of the grid, is do you go aggressive on a soft tyre or something to be a bit different and make passes, or do you start on a hard tyre and play the long game? It's tricky to know.
It's tough to say. We've also we now understand that on average Charles Leclerc on the first few laps is doing a 125.757. The only comparison we've got is George Russell doing a 126.388. So that's the best part of 6 tenths faster for Leclerc over George Russell. But let's call maybe a couple of tenths of that are the deployment issues that are going on at at Mercedes right now.
One of the interesting factors last week at Spa was the fact that Mercedes went on the medium tyre at the start and pretty much everybody else around them was on the soft. Now, they wouldn't have known that others were doing that. They would have just gone, this is our strategy, this is what they're likely to do, and gone with something else. But I just wonder if you start on a soft at the front, if you go on a hard towards the back and just try and mix things up, I know medium hard is the preferred strategy, but this is the first year where you haven't got to stay on the tyres that you qualified on in Q2. And I think that's opened up a load of possibilities. It's been good.
I would suggest that Mercedes probably did know that everyone around them would start on the different tyres, because I think they sort of saw themselves as being a bit out of position in Zandvoort, and the only way to make progress would be to do something else and to be a bit aggressive on the strategy. So yeah, that's the key part, is whether you're out of place on the grid or not, as Vettel comes across the line down in 17th place, and Carlos Sainz though will end the session quickest. Leclerc, well, Sainz is still lapping a couple of tenths slower than Max Verstappen, just getting of Sainz coming into turn 1 and just sailing in a little bit too hot. I think he might have caught the right front a little bit and then gone straight on. There was briefly a yellow flag out there. Can't work out who that was for. Jenny?
Yeah, just on drivers out of position. Remember, Sainz, Hamilton and Tsunoda at the moment are the 3 drivers that will start at the back of the grid with engine penalties. Bottas is plus 15 as well, so he'll be there or thereabouts. Verstappen's plus 5, and is that it? I think that might be it for the minute.
I lose track. You're the one with the list, so I just trust you, basically.
Such a long list, that's the problem. But yeah, we're talking about you know, what will different cars do, and if they're out of position, clearly quite a few.
And Bottas, I think he's done exactly the same again, coming through the second Lesmo.
Again on the gravel, same place. But all good. Okay, copy.
So yeah, twice in about 3 laps.
Bizarre.
Bottas
Really
has been off at the second Lesmo, yeah?
Really strange. Going back to people going off the circuit at turn 1, so there was recently an IndyCar race, I think it was it Portland?
Yes.
So they have a rule over there at the first corner, where if you miss the corner for whatever reason, you then have to go through an area of track that they have scheduled for you to go through. If you don't do that, you absolutely 100% get a drive-through penalty. I think that they need to employ the same rules here. It seems like a lot of people are going off at turn 1, and it's too easy for you to take the line, sort of, there's an extra bit of tarmac that goes with the corner instead of going through the arrows. I think that they're going to need to do something about that in the future.
Charles Leclerc has gone in very deep into the second chicane, and a big lock-up on the left front. I think he also missed the first chicane as well, Charles Leclerc, and had to cut through the corners there. IndyCar, broadly speaking, IndyCar rules are quite cool. Like, there's sometimes where the race director will just be like, right, you got to give up 1 position, or you jump the start, you got to give up 3 positions, or it's so, like, not kind of made up on the spot, but it's that sort of vibe, which is quite cool. I've also just noticed a really nice sort of mural on the ground on the tarmac runoff area at Parabolica, and I'll work out who it was, and it's a racing car.
Have you only just noticed that?
Yeah, it's very cool, but it's Michele Alboreto. All day.
1 month left is first motive.
So whether I continue, I haven't decided yet whether I'll continue calling it Parabolica or change to Alboreto. We'll wait and see. Charles Leclerc's flat spotted his front left in that lockup. 15 laps he did on that run, but the checker flag is out. Carlos Sainz quickest at 1 minute 21.664. Just under 2 tenths quicker than Verstappen. 2 tenths ahead of Charles Leclerc in third. Norris in fourth. Russell in fifth. Perez, Hamilton, Ocon, Alonso and Albon the top 10. Ricciardo, Zhou, Bottas, Gasly, Tsunoda the top 15. Magnussen, Vettel, Stroll, Latifi and Schumacher the 20 drivers.
So that is the end of Friday practice in Monza, as we see Ferrari once again topping the timesheets, but by just the smallest of margins. Jack, I know... Can we get our hopes up a little bit?
I can.
Yes.
I mean,
Okay.
yeah, Ferrari have been struggling with degradation in recent races. Verstappen did look quicker than Sainz overall on the medium tyres, but only by a couple of tenths, and he's starting out of position. And you need a very big advantage to do a sort of regular overtake here. Okay, also Red Bull have straight line speed advantage. Yes, Sainz will be starting at the back. Maybe Leclerc will be. There's possibilities. I don't think this is a done deal in the way quite in the way it was done in Spa, because Verstappen was so quick the whole time in Spa, whereas here it seems a bit more even, which is surprising, but it seems to be a fact.
The FIA stewards are investigating an incident with Yuki Tsunoda at turn 5 for failing to slow under yellow flags.
Could do with another reprimand, couldn't he? Actually, well, his slate's wiped clean now, presumably.
I was going to say, well, it will be after this.
Yeah.
After this weekend, you get the rules were changed, so if you get 5 reprimands, then you have to get a 10-second penalty, and then, yes, as you say, the points come off. They're not points, but the reprimands come off your slate, and you can start all over again. Sam Bird. The track looks just stunning with the sun just elongating the shadows. The parkland looks incredible. I mean, we are set up for a good weekend of racing, aren't we? With qualifying happening back to usual tomorrow and then the race on Sunday.
It is a wonderful place to go racing.
Is it tricky with the shadows?
No,
well, not
it's
too
okay.
bad. Oh,
it's
fine.
okay. But it is, Jenny, it's a wonderful place to go racing, steeped in history. You've got the... you've got the Tifosi there cheering in their hundreds of thousands. It'll be I really do.
Mick Schumacher finishing the day P20 and only getting 9 laps. He missed the first practice session as he sat out in the Haas for Antonio Giovinazzi, and that's going to be hard to come back from, Sam, isn't it? It's such a big disadvantage to miss that much running.
Indeed, he's really not done much at all today. Tomorrow is a very short day. There's only a few laps that he'll do in FP3 and then straight into qualifying when it matters. Not collected any significant race data either. So he's going to be purely relying on his teammate. It's a tough day for Haas on that side of the garage.
And they're in for a tough weekend anyway, Haas. So it's not great for Schumacher, but it's not like they were on for big points this weekend anyway, whereas last weekend will have really hurt them because they both had really good pace but couldn't convert it into points. So that's kind of a bit of a positive for Schumacher, sort of.
Okay. Well, it'll be Carlos Sainz, Lewis Hamilton and Yuki Tsunoda starting at the back of the grid. They're qualifying. Maybe they'll be able to help out their teammates, but their focus will be coming from the back when it comes to Sunday. The race gets underway at 2 o'clock, and you can listen to qualifying tomorrow at 3, with free practice 3 taking place at midday. Thank you so much for your company. Enjoy your evening, and I'll speak to you later.